How's it going, everyone? Welcome in to another live episode of the Dynasty Force Podcast here live on Twitter. Coming off of an insane week 2 here, piled with injuries, piled with sadness. I'm sure that my partner, my co-host Billy Brisbane, at Getting Bills on Twitter, feels the same way. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I feel like this week's waiver wire was the most important one of the season. It's usually the week 1 waiver wire that's usually the most important, but the week 3 waiver wire is absolutely plentiful in deep leagues, short leagues, and every type of league possible. So I'm ready to get into it and talk about it.
Yeah. Really quick, I don't know how active you were in waivers, fab leagues, whatever. What's the highest fab that you kind of spent this week, and who'd you spend it on?
The highest fab that I spent this week was on the one that I spent the most to acquire was Dion Lewis in the Brewski League. Shout out Shane and slapmom.com. And I put in 55 and I was number 2 for Dion Lewis. Somebody put in like 150 fab points for Dion Lewis. So I was like, hey, man, you can have him at that point. But the most successful one that I acquired was my home league. I actually spent $16 to get Nick Mullins. Crazy because somebody in the league also spent $23 to get Jeff Driscoll. So it's a super flex league. So, quarterbacks are hard to come by.
That's your home league. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Was he potentially the Drew Lock owner that was flexing Drew Lock? Because at that point, I mean, I can kind of understand because he's probably desperate.
I think it was the Tua owner.
Yeah, I feel that because in one of my leagues, it's more of a rebuild. I only have Teddy and Tua really at quarterback, and Tua's not playing, so I'm struggling in that league. The most I spent, I actually went heavy in one league trying to get Mike Davis just because it was a dynasty league, and dynasty waivers are pretty thin, so. The fact is, I felt as though getting Mike Davis, he's going to be one waiver wire guy who's actually going to produce for once, and hard to come by in Dynasty. So,
hey, man, I kind of got lucky. We'll talk about that later.
Trey Tyndall, FF Superflex Guru on Twitter. Good-looking fellas. Looking forward to this episode. Terrible week for injuries.
What up, Trey?
Had to throw in the Melvin Gordon little point there. So for those of you who don't know, I was on the Fantasy Forecasters podcast on Saturday. Trey and I were on, and we went over guys to play and guys to bench. And he was on the side of playing Melvin Gordon. I was on the side of benching him. So we decided to set a little bet at 14.5 PPR points for Melvin Gordon. If he hit the over, Trey would win. If he hit the under, I would win. And the bet was basically a week of, whatever profile picture the other one wanted. So if you see me on Twitter right now at Fantasy Force FB, sadly I have a upside down drunk Falcon logo as my Twitter. And as you can see by my shirt right now, still wearing the Falcons. I mean, my fiance can attest to how upset I was this weekend after that loss. And I know you had to have seen it, Billy. To me, there's no reason that Dan Quinn still has a job at this moment.
Man, that defense was absolutely horrendous, man. But I benefited tremendously because I had Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a little bit sketchy in that first quarter, man.
3 rushing touchdowns for Dak. And, I mean, like I said, the Falcons can't stop anyone. What do you think about that onside kick, though?
Dude, it was crazy. I was watching it live, and I was somebody in the room was like, I don't think that's getting there. I don't think that's getting there. And then it got there, and it was just like, literally, it felt like I was watching a video game because I'm from South Jersey, just like you. So obviously, I was at my friend's house, Nick, and we're watching the Eagles game on the big screen. But I had my laptop with me because I have Red Zone and stuff on my laptop, and I was really watching the Atlanta-Dallas game the whole entire time because the Eagles game was dog shit. But
yeah,
I don't want to rap too much about the game. That game was absolutely crazy. Dalton Schultz with 10 targets, 9 receptions. Dude, I thought he was just a guy, man.
He is just a guy.
He's not just a guy. He's a guy in the Dallas offense. I want him.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to hear more about that, but we'll head into the main sort of segments of our episode. As always, here's where you can find us at Getting Bills for Billy, DFS content daily, essentially, with how much he's posting over there, how much you cover.
Make sure you also check out Pub Sports Radio. My fault, Rav. I had to let him know. Pub Sports Radio, Fridays, I'll have my DFS videos up on there, and that would be for DraftKings and FanDuel. Let me know what you guys want to see on the videos, if it's like stacks or stuff like that. And I have yet to debut for the Fantasy Forecasters articles, but I will be sending Trey over that stuff hopefully this Thursday. So be on the lookout for my social media. Got a lot of things going on this week.
Yeah, and you can find me at Fantasy Force FB, of course. That's not my AV right now. Sadly, my real AV is more depressing for me. But anywho, I post a lot of articles, stats. Well, not post, but repost, retweet, whatever. And soon after the podcast, I'll be posting my weekly not trend, but thread of matchups, breakdowns. So yeah, keep in mind for that. And if you don't want to stay up and watch for it, then check it out tomorrow, or by the time you're listening to this podcast, it'll be my pinned tweet. So stay tuned for that. Let's head into our icebreaker real quick. Billy, which week 2 injury affected your fantasy team the most? There's so many to choose from. I will just let you have your pick.
I would say the injury that affected me the most was Christian McCaffrey. I drafted him in the Brewski League that I was talking to you about, but it didn't affect me too much because I actually drafted Mike Davis. So it didn't affect me too much because I already had him and Jerick McKinnon. So a lot of the people that were on the waiver wires in the leagues that I was in were probably typing in their names and finding it already on my team. But I also did have to trade for Jerick McKinnon and Traquan Smith in my home league. So I'll talk more about that later on in the starts of the week.
Yeah. I mean, it's lucky that you had Mike Davis, honestly, but like,
right? I dropped Reggie. I think I dropped Reggie Bonifant and switched out Mike Davis. I think that was flip. I didn't draft Mike Davis. I think it was
just solid. I normally like to have my handcuffs in Dynasty because they cost so much less, and like, you know, especially when they're clear like that. I mean, Mike Davis obviously is not going to perform like Christian McCaffrey, but he's going to get the work. And that Carolina offense has got to be moving because the Carolina defense is so bad. So
yeah,
hopefully some receptions coming in from Mike Davis too. Week 2 injury that affected me the most was probably Saquon. I mean, I didn't have him everywhere. I really only had him in one league. And in that league, I still put up 170 points last week without him because I had, I want to say, I know I had Aaron Jones, Calvin Ridley. I'm pretty sure I had Jonnu. Odell had a good week for me. Tyler, like, I had a lot of good players, and I still do. Tell me your thoughts on this trade that I posted yesterday, Bill. One side received David Montgomery and I forget already, Jamison Crowder, and the other side received Odell Beckham and Latavius Murray. I'm not going to say one side and the other side.
Repeat that trade again?
So basically, I lost Saquon. So to make up for it, I went out and traded Odell Beckham and Latavius Murray away to the Alvin Kamara owner and got back David Montgomery and Jamison Crowder. 10-team full PPR.
I don't hate that trade. Is that a dynasty league or a redraft league?
It's redraft.
All right, yeah, redraft. I'm fine with that. At that point, fuck Saquon Barkley. I mean, am I right though? Like, you're just trying to get to the fantasy playoffs. I hate when people, when you watch like certain people outlets for fantasy football to be like, yeah, man, you hold them on your bench for a while, they'll come back, this, that, and the third. Like, fuck that, dude. I'm just trying to win weeks. I need to get to the playoffs. We'll worry about getting to the playoffs and maneuvering through that.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully Jamison Crowder comes back soon from his injury, his hamstring injury. So maybe, I mean, before week 2, but maybe that injury ends up affecting me the most because I have Crowder in more spots than I had Barkley. Anyway, let's move on into the news. We got, like I said, a ton of injuries in week 2 to break down real quick, hopefully. Courtland Sutton tore his ACL. He's out for the season. He was entering the game. It was his first game of the season. He missed the first game of the season with a shoulder injury. So this was his first game, and he tore his ACL. I mean, it sucks for the dude. Like, he's a great wide receiver. Entering that third year where wide receivers are really supposed to break out. Had Jerry Jeudy on the opposite side, who was supposed to open things up. Noah Fant's been looking good. So Courtland Sutton was in a good position to succeed if Drew Lock could get him the ball. So I mean, him missing this season sucks for fantasy owners, but I mean, maybe this is nice in a sense because, I mean, not nice in a sense. Obviously, you know, a player getting hurt is never going to be nice, but it's going to downgrade the offense one way or another, in my opinion. And if this team is in a position where they can draft a quarterback of the future next year, because I'm not a Drew Lock believer, then maybe that's an upgrade for Courtland Sutton in the long run. That said, no, you know, shade on Sutton and get better soon. You know, he's a great player, and he'll be great in the future.
Bump up those KJ Hamler.
Yes, KJ Hamler is actually like, you know, he was very involved. I don't know what the snap percentages were, but he was very involved last week once Sutton went out. And you know, he was a second round pick for a reason.
Yeah.
The Denver Broncos just became the Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders of starting two rookie wide receivers at the same time and seeing how it goes, basically. Though I would say Jeudy and Hamler are better as a whole than Ruggs and Edwards, personally. That said, let's move on here. Paris Campbell, PCL injury. He's out indefinitely. I've been seeing on Twitter that it will be hard for Campbell to come back this season. I mean, they're not saying like it's torn or sprained badly. Like, there's nothing specific about this. What are your thoughts on Paris Campbell's injury so far? He was very involved in week 1, got injured early here in week 2.
A little bit of both. I kind of feel bad for Paris Campbell because, like you said, week 1 he looked like the Colts' #1 wide receiver. But long term, I have T.Y. Hilton on one of my dynasty teams, so we're looking all right because I was getting a little bit nervous, man. But I actually think it bumps up. You know how sometimes when you take one receiver out, somebody wants to say like Michael Pittman Jr. and Zach Pascal. Well, I feel like it's going to be distributed between those two, T.Y., Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox. Like, all of those guys get like a somewhat of a boost because I don't think it's going to be one single person. It's going to be multiple people.
Yeah, I agree with that. My thought too on this kind of was more for Nyheim Hines because he was not very involved last week, but maybe he can be involved as a slot receiver. He has good hands, and I don't know the snap percentages, but he only got one touch last week. So, I completely understand them using Jonathan Taylor as a workhorse. I would too if I was in that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe they can utilize Nyheim Hines a bit more, who is a good player in his own right. So that's the hope. Tyrod Taylor, it was really weird heading into Sunday where Tyrod Taylor was the starter, and then all of a sudden Justin Herbert is out there on the first play of the game, and you're like, what? And then, like, out of nowhere, you hear, oh, well, Tyrod Taylor got hurt, and then everyone's just second guessing it, saying he's not actually hurt. And wink, wink, he's hurt, And then all of a sudden, oh, Tyrod Taylor is going to the hospital. Oh, Tyrod Taylor actually had his lung punctured because he had to receive a painkiller because he was about to play with cracked ribs. Like, shout out to Tyrod, man. Like, I feel bad for him, honestly.
Yeah, dude, I heard the story, and I was just like so confused of like, because it was I think I don't want to be quoted on it, but it wasn't even. I'm not even gonna say what I was gonna say. But you can move
on. You know how Anthony Lynn has been like so. Well, Tyrod's our guy. Tyrod is our starter when he's healthy and all this. I feel like Anthony Lynn just feels bad that this happened to Tyrod. Like, he didn't even lose the job.
Dude, I told you in the beginning of the season that I don't know what it is about these early, like, first round or second round quarterbacks, but one way or another, they just find their way on the fucking football field.
That's not wrong. When's it going to happen with Tua? That's the big question. We'll have to see Miami, how they look tomorrow night against a.
Did you see that Tua still has not been tackled since his surgery?
Yeah, I did see that. I mean, at some point you're gonna have to put him out there. So I mean, when does that point in time come? You can't ease him into it forever. Yeah. So kind of concerning. He to me, he definitely won't play at all this year. And I don't know if they have a third quarterback, but I'm sure they do. And it's probably like some really bad guy who has no future that they'll just throw in, if Fitzpatrick were to get hurt or something. Anyway, moving on here. Tevin Coleman placed on IR. He's got a knee injury. It wasn't stated specifically, but he should miss about 4 weeks. The IR guarantees that he's going to miss at least 3. And then Raheem Mostert is doubtful for week 3. If you've been paying attention to the news, they're saying that it's not nearly as bad as Tevin Coleman's, and he should be back sooner than Coleman. But him not playing this week, I think that makes Jerick McKinnon a great play as they play the New York Giants. They played the New York Jets last week. Even with all the injuries they had, Raheem Mostert still had a decent week. Jerick McKinnon only had 4 touches, I believe, but he was still efficient on those touches. And they're staying on the East Coast, so it's not like they are, suffering from travel, like going to New York from San Francisco, back to San Francisco, back to New York. So they're staying there. And like I said, the Jerick McKinnon play looks like a good one with this week based on volume. I mean, he's not going to get all the work, obviously, but he'll be the lead guy. And the Giants defense is not something to be afraid of.
Yeah, I definitely will second the choir to that. The only thing is if Jeff Wilson's floating around out there in your dynasty leagues or maybe in a redraft league for the deeper ones, I would definitely throw him on the roster because while I do think Jerick McKinnon is a more talented player, which he definitely is, like athletic-wise, I feel like Jeff Wilson's more of a, I would say, a power back type of build. Yeah, like a banger. And I don't think this offense really drops too far off from Jimmy Garoppolo to Nick Mullins.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they had anyone to throw to as it was, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Nick Mullins played bad last year. Or not last year, the year that he
Nick
got
Mullins is not bad. Yeah, we've seen him perform well before too. So, yeah, I don't really think there's much else to cover. I would play Jerick McKinnon over a decent amount of names this week. Let me go hunt a name real quick and see if.
Would you go Jerick McKinnon or Mike Davis?
I'd probably go McKinnon in that instance.
Dude, Mike Davis saw 8 catches last week, dude.
No, I believe Mike Davis will be good, but I really am in on Jerick McKinnon. You remember a few years ago when Jerick McKinnon first signed with the 49ers and all that hype with him? Yeah, I mean, there was a reason for that, and he's been looking good.
This is like the truth or status week for fantasy football. Like, I feel like all these names from like 2 years ago are just starting to pop. Like Marquez Valdez-Scantling
dude.
For because I think Lazard's not the number 2. I think it's MVS.
I think MVS fits the scheme better, right?
Yeah.
Like the downfield sort of guy that they need across from Adams to stretch the field. Not in our news though. We can hit that real quick. Do you think Davante Adams plays in week 3 with his hamstring injury? You think
I think it's going to be annoying for fantasy owners because it's a Sunday night football game, but I do think he does play because this is a pretty big game for both teams.
Yeah, to me, it's almost a must-win for New Orleans. I think the Packers, like, I mean, when you watch New Orleans on Monday night against Las Vegas, like, it was just not the same football team to me. Like, without Michael Thomas, Drew Brees was a little less Drew Brees-like. Yeah. And then, like, I real quick want to touch on how painful Emmanuel Sanders wants to hurt me.
That was bad.
All right, I only wanted to touch on it, so we're good. We can move on. Anyway, be wary of Davante Adams real quick. Just pay attention to see if he will play, and you should have a backup plan. Go pick up Traquan Smith, who's in that same game, and play him if Davante Adams can't play. As far as some good injury news, Kenny Golladay should play in week 3, his first game of the season, hopefully. And the Detroit Lions play the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, you're playing Kenny Golladay, so there's not really much to touch on with this one. And it'll be nice to see Kenny G in a 2020 NFL game. And then we'll move on here straight into our main segment of the show, which is going to be sort of a week 3 preview, in which we present some guys that we believe are either must play guys or really going to outperform projections, or guys that we would prefer to bench or will underperform projections there. So let's call them must play and cool on for now. Obviously, guys, where we're saying they're going to project a little less, like, you don't have to bench them. Like, it's not like we're going to sit here and say, like, bench Josh Allen because he's not going up against a soft defense anymore. Like, you're obviously going to play Josh Allen, but, just expect a little less. But for me, I'll start this off at the quarterback position. There's no way I'm not playing Ryan Tannehill this week. Tennessee Titans going up against the Minnesota Vikings, who have been a terrible defense to this point. Ryan Tannehill has actually been low-key pretty good for fantasy. He hasn't been, home run hitting like some of the other big names. Like right now there's 4 quarterbacks averaging more than 30 points over these 2 weeks. But Ryan Tannehill is averaging 23 over 2 weeks. So that's actually really good. And then you have the matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, who have been very bad at getting pressure on the quarterback and have very inexperienced corners. So I like Ryan Tannehill in this matchup with or without A.J. Brown, who likely will not play. Another guy in the news section we didn't really cover, but Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith are two guys that can definitely get it done, especially in this matchup. What are your thoughts on Ryan Tannehill?
I really do like the Titans in this spot this week. I feel like Corey Davis can. I feel like him and Adam Humphries have been getting the same amount of targets, but the air yards have been in favor for Corey Davis. And if Corey Davis can complete a little bit of those air yards, he can definitely be what we all thought a little bit of what his original draft profile was going to be like. And Jonnu Smith was just a freaking baller Sunday. But I think another name to highlight is Adam Humphries, because I feel like Adam Humphries, 8 targets in week 1, 9 targets in week 2. He's been
getting the work.
Consistent for my PPR league.
Yeah, for sure. He, this is what we kind of wanted. I believe it was last year when he signed with Tennessee. So this is what we wanted then. And I guess now with the whole offseason of prep, we may finally, sort of be getting it. How about your quarterback that you're looking forward to playing this week, Bill?
The quarterback that I'm looking forward to playing this week is Cam Newton. Besides Minshew, Newton, and Baker, those are my most owned quarterbacks this year. He looked phenomenal, honestly, through like the early first 2 weeks of the season. Him and Christian McCaffrey lead the league in rushing touchdowns currently right now. He also ranks in the top 8 in yards and completions percentage. In week 2, Cam Newton either passed or rushed for 444 of the Patriots' 464 yards in week 2, which accounted for 95% of their offense. In addition, he set Julian Edelman's career high in receiving yards. Yes, Cam Newton set Julian Edelman's career high in receiving yards, not Tom Brady. And that happened in week 2. My man Cam is on a mission. He's a must start this week against a poor Raiders defense. I feel like the Raiders are a team that the public is kind of overreacting to, being 2-0 this early on in the season. But I feel like Cam Newton deserves to be ranked in the top 5 this week or just outside of it. And I feel like everyone's kind of getting on the Cam Newton wave, but they have him as a low-end QB1 instead of like a middling, high-end QB1. Like, I'd rather play Cam Newton. I feel like Cam Newton's on the same exact platform as Deshaun Watson this week.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I would put him ahead of him because, Deshaun Watson on that end plays Pittsburgh. So if you had the choice between Cam Newton and Deshaun Watson, at least the matchup tells me to play Cam Newton. So, I would much rather trust that. I just mentioned there are 4 quarterbacks that are averaging more than 30 points through these 2 weeks. Cam Newton is one of them. So
Russell
pretty
Wilson.
crazy. It's Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray. So those quarterbacks are paying dividends. And then Dak Prescott is next up at 28.7 at the moment. So he is also, close to that spot. Moving on to running back that I'm most certainly playing this week. Not that you are necessarily in a position to bench him, but maybe you were, because depending when you drafted, he may have fallen a bit in your draft because he was hurt right before the season started. But now he's healthy, and David Montgomery actually looks pretty good for the Chicago Bears. That said, it is the Chicago Bears, Mitchell Trubisky led. So, you can't expect Christian McCaffrey level numbers from David Montgomery, or not even close to Aaron Jones numbers from last week. But David Montgomery is going to be solid. He is the clear workhorse. I believe Tariq Cohen had 3 or 4 touches last week total. People would worry about the extension for Tariq Cohen, but he is just a gadget player, whereas David Montgomery is everything that this offense wants to do. He's the full workhorse, and now the Chicago Bears get to play the Atlanta Falcons. And I am a Falcons fan, but I don't have to be a Falcons fan to tell you how bad their defense has been so far. It's widely known. And I believe David Montgomery can take advantage. Getting the full workload, getting involved in the receiving game. How do you feel about David Montgomery this week?
I definitely feel like David Montgomery is warranted a start, but I still have him as a high-end RB2, middling of the pack. Yeah, I would say high-end RB2, middling of the pack RB2. It's kind of weird.
Him or James Conner this week? James Conner for Pittsburgh going up against the Texans.
I would probably say James Conner against the Texans. I kind of like the Steelers in that home environment, and the Texans' defense has been very porous. We saw what Clyde Edwards-Helaire did to them on opening night. So I definitely feel like I'm more inclined to go with James Conner. That might be against the crowd considering his performance on Monday Night Football week 1, but his performance week 2 is more reflective of what I feel like his upside is for the whole entire season.
One more. How about James Robinson for the Jacksonville Jaguars on Thursday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins?
I'm going to say James Robinson because he's just getting all the targets, all the carries. He's a bell cow back. He's just.
But so is Montgomery. He is also a bell cow back. So I'll put that in there. I would take Montgomery in both of those situations, just to say. Moving on here. How about your running back? Look, I was actually going to pick your running back. But I knew you were going to pick this guy because you've been talking him up all offseason. So I wanted you to have the chance here.
The guy that me and Rob are both talking about is Joshua Kelly, taking over the Melvin Gordon role early and very impressive in his rookie season so far. He has standalone value independently from Austin Eckler. That's kind of the reason why I picked him for this topic, because among RBs, only 2 games, I know, but he's 9th in total rushing attempts, 9th in red zone attempts, 8th inside the 10, and 9th inside the 5. I think he can give you an RB2 number, and you can start him in your flex this week. The Panthers' rushing defense is something that I tend on picking on all season this season. Dating back to last season, they have allowed multiple touchdown games to RBs in 7 straight games.
Yeah, it's a porous defense, to say the least. There's a decent amount of situations here where I could kind of make a quick comparison. Joshua Kelly or, I don't know, Antonio Gibson for Washington.
Not even close.
Not even close. All right.
Not even close.
How about I go up a bit? Kenyon Drake for Arizona.
Not even close. Kenyon Drake. Have you seen that Russian defense, man? I feel like Kenyon Drake's one of those candidates for a nice bounce back. We all thought it was going to be week 2 against Washington, but I think week 3 is the Kenyon Drake week. I'll be playing him a lot in FanDuel this week.
Final one. How about Kareem Hunt? Cleveland going up against Washington this week.
I think Hunt, because he has standalone value in the pass catching game, and the way this game might go, who knows what can happen.
Who knows? I like I said though, I'm down to play Joshua Kelly. I'm down to play a ton of Chargers, and that's seen by my wide receiver play for this week. It's going to be Keenan Allen. I don't see a way that Tyrod Taylor starts this week, as I mentioned, punctured lung. It's going to be tough for him to find his way out onto the field. And then Justin Herbert, you saw him no preparation last week, start and look a lot better than Tyrod Taylor getting guys the ball. Keenan Allen last week was actually pretty productive with Justin Herbert behind center. I will work to pull up those numbers real quick because I don't remember. I mean, I know you saw that one pass where Herbert floated it over the defense. He has just this sort of touch that I feel like Tyrod not doesn't have, but wasn't shown to this point this season. Keenan Allen was wide receiver 20 in PPR leagues last week with 16.6 points. So yeah, I think he could definitely hit that number and then some this week against a really bad Carolina defense. Yeah, how do you kind of feel about Keenan Allen? Could be, I mean, either him or Mike Williams or Hunter Henry or Austin Eckler. There's so many options there, but I think Keenan Allen's the clear number one.
I'd like Keenan Allen. I mean, if you drafted him, you probably have to play him in this spot. But I wouldn't say I'm too bullish on Keenan Allen. However, this would be a good game for him to really build on his connection with the new rookie quarterback.
How about Keenan Allen, or we'll go with DK Metcalf going up against the Dallas Cowboys this week?
I would probably say DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I feel like DK is pretty much a must-play this week. He's performing way better than I kind of expect him to. How about we'll go with Amari Cooper, same game against the Seattle Seahawks.
Amari Cooper, man, he's been pretty legit of recent.
All right, I will give you one more. Mike Evans, can't remember who Tampa Bay plays. Denver. Mike Evans or Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen.
Well, I found the line. For me, I would probably play him over Amari, but I'm definitely not playing him over DK. Moving on here, how do you feel about the wide receiver position this week? Is there anyone you're looking at?
Yes, man. There is some players that I am looking at in the wide receiver position. One of the players that I'm looking at in the wide receiver position is Traquan Smith. With Michael Thomas being out, the biggest question was who was going to be the Saints' leading pass catcher, and we got our answer Monday night. Traquan Smith, truther status, baby. Let's go. He led the receivers in targets, second to Kamara on the team. It's unclear how long Thomas will be out for, but even when he does come back, I don't think he'll be 100%. Emmanuel Sanders, maybe Father Time is catching up to him, but he's not looking the same. Brees, quote unquote, last Thursday on a radio show down there in Louisiana said, quote unquote, Traquan Smith is a guy who I think is ready to blossom and just explode in this offense, end quote. And the Packers is a great matchup so far, even though I don't want to overreact to 2 weeks, but throughout the first 2 weeks, they're allowing the 23rd most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. Traquan Smith has wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 flex upside for this week, and I think he's a trade target of mine. I actually just made a trade today. How do you feel about this? I traded away a second rounder and Van Jefferson for Traquan Smith and Jerick McKinnon and a future 4th round pick.
I mean, that's very win now, in my opinion.
We have to start 4 flex.
Yeah. So that's like I said, it's very win now, but it's
Mo Alley Cox in the flex last week. I was struggling.
That paid off, right?
Yeah.
No, in those deep leagues, you just find starts where you can find them, and then
man. We actually have a league medium in that league too. So you're not like, for example, last week the matchup was so close that I was more focused on beating the league medium than my actual opponent, and I only lost to the league medium by 1 point and to my opponent by 1 point. So it was pretty frustrating, man. I got hit with collusion for making a Laviska Shenault trade, but we'll talk about that off air.
Traquan Smith or Corey Davis this week. Corey Davis against Minnesota.
Give me Traquan Smith.
Ooh, I actually will much rather have Corey Davis, whether A.J. Brown is in or not. So how do you feel about making a little bet ski on that one?
I will definitely make a bet ski on that one. Because I'm more of I know you put up Adam Humphries and Corey Davis. It's like picking between like a gourmet dinner or like a frozen microwave
Fast
dinner.
Food.
Yeah, like a frozen microwave dinner. And sometimes, man, those banquet dinners are pretty fucking good, Rob.
It depends which ones you buy. Like
and
the mac and cheese. The mac and cheese, though, like surprisingly, may be the best mac and cheese I've ever had. Stouffer's mac and cheese.
That's what I'm saying, man. Adam Humphries is that Stouffer's mac and cheese microwave meal, and Corey Davis is that gourmet meal where you're not full after you eat.
I don't know about that. We'll see. On the books, though, Traquan Smith versus Corey Davis. We'll move on here. Tight end position. I am not, his teammate, but Jonnu Smith. I am more than drinking the Kool-Aid. I believe Jonnu Smith is this year's breakout tight end. We've seen it so far. He's the tight end 3 to this point. I know it's very early, and some of his matchups are not something that you're gonna, like they played. I forget already. Jacksonville this past week, and that's not something to be that's not a matchup to be concerned about. But Jonnu just looks the part. He looks very involved. As I said, we were kind of, talking up Adam Humphries a bit. Corey Davis actually looks like he's alive out there. Jonnu, I think the whole offseason of Ryan Tannehill being the guy, being prepared as the guy, and Derrick Henry's, everyone's so scared of Derrick Henry that they're really not focusing on the passing weapons. Obviously A.J. Brown is there, but then you also have these other guys that can beat you. And Jonnu Smith is stepping up, and I don't see a way that you can bench him this week against the Minnesota Vikings of all teams. I have, in a 10-team league, I had George Kittle. I picked Jonnu up off the waiver wire to play him. If George Kittle plays this week, I might still rock with Jonnu just for safety measures, because George Kittle, I believe he's still hurt. Even if he plays, I don't think he's 100% by any means. And, you could see that reflected in the stat line, whereas Jonnu is definitely 100% and in a great matchup where I believe there's very little chance that he doesn't succeed. How do you feel about Jonnu this week?
I told you last week I played a lot of Mo Cox, but I was a little bit annoyed because Jonnu Smith was 3,500 or something like that. I forget what his price tag was on the 2 different websites, but he just slightly outperformed Mo Cox point per dollar wise. But I really do like Jonnu Smith. I was on him last week, but I felt like last week was just a splash game. But I feel like he's going to show more consistency in these upcoming weeks.
Jonnu or Hayden Hurst?
For this week?
Yeah. Hayden Hurst and the Atlanta Falcons up against Chicago.
I would say Hayden Hurst.
I was going to say Tyler Higbee, but it's kind of hard to bench Tyler Higbee after a 3-touchdown game. So
I feel like a good 50-50 one would be Jonnu or Mike Gesicki. Are you buying into the Mike Gesicki hype train and starting him in a juicy Jacksonville matchup, or you'd rather just start Jonnu Smith?
I'd much rather start Jonnu. I like what Gesicki showed, but
definitely a overreaction.
I wouldn't say an overreaction because it was a great game.
It was a great game. I'm talking about overreaction for long term.
Everyone's sitting here trying to take a victory lap, ignoring week 1 when he did nothing. It's you can't have both of them, in my opinion. So, but no, I like Gesicki for the long run, but I definitely don't think he's doing what he did last week every week.
Okay, I can definitely see that.
How about tight end for you?
The tight end that I'm going to talk about is Logan Thomas from the Washington football team.
I'm pretty sure that you talked about Logan Thomas last week. Are you becoming
the next week after, and the next week after? There's only 3 tight ends in the league with at least 20% target share of their team's offense throughout the first 2 games of the season, and they are Darren Waller, Hunter Henry, and Logan Thomas. Week 2, his usage jumped up to 91% of the team snaps. 95 of those snaps were routes, and he accounted for 27% target share of the I keep on almost trying to say the Redskins offense, but the Washington football team's offense. I'll give you the good and the bad about Logan Thomas. The good will be that he's third in slot snaps, third in targets, fifth in red zone targets, and 11th in receptions. But the bad would be that he's 34th for yards per target and 32nd in true catch rate and 35th in separation and 7th in drop rate. But the reason why he's making this list for week number 2 again is because in fantasy sometimes opportunity and volume outweighs the efficiency, and that's how I feel about Logan Thomas. As long as that he's in this offense with Dwayne Haskins and he's going to be the second target behind Terry McLaurin, I will be buying Logan Thomas, trading for Logan Thomas, playing Logan Thomas. No rhyme intended.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, like, he's not been efficient, but that's more of a testament to Dwayne Haskins more than anything to me. Yeah, he's a good tight end. My question to you would kind of be like, where would you rank him? Because I feel like there's a lot of good tight end plays right now. Like you mentioned, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry. Would you play Thomas over? I mean, I know you wouldn't play him over Waller.
Yeah, I mean Hunter or Waller, but I feel like, for example, remember when you asked me, for example, Hayden Hurst, but I would be tempted to play Logan Thomas over Hayden Hurst, but for example, a hot commodity was like Austin Hooper over the draft season. I would be more inclined to pick up Logan Thomas and start him over Austin Hooper if I've been burned by him in redraft leagues.
Shout out at jsnake_DFF on Twitter. He's been hyping up Logan Thomas all off season, and you know how like Dynasty Twitter. I mean, you might not know, but you might know. Some people listening might know.
The Dynasty Twitter is a chamber of weird shit that you can get into.
Like in the off season, they find like the deepest guys to just hype up and like get their hype train out of control. Like,
oh my god, who was that kid from the Packers last year? Like Jeff Janis?
Jace Sternberger?
No,
it wasn't about Janis.
Jeff Janis 2 years ago when he was like
2 years ago he was.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, like that.
Yeah,
type of thing.
Yeah. You have no idea how much I heard about how Cahale Waring was going to be an elite tight end this season for the Houston Texans, and now, I mean, I think he's hurt, but even when he was healthy, he's still not cracking the field over Darren Fells and Jordan Akins, who are not good players. They're just By the way, I feel like Deshaun Watson makes Darren Fells and Jordan Akins look like great tight ends. Like, could you imagine if like he had a great tight end? I want to see that, please. Houston, I know you have no first-round picks, but make it happen.
Deshaun Watson's like, that's the reason why when you talked about the Cam thing, I was a little bit hesitant because it was like Deshaun Watson makes fucking magic out of fucking garbage every week, and he's just like a one-man show, dude, like a poor man's Lamar Jackson.
He's a rich poor man's Lamar Jackson.
Dude, they literally had the hardest 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
because
Kansas City and Baltimore.
Kansas City and Baltimore are here, and then Pittsburgh's like right here, the tier right next to it.
All right. Let's move into the guys that we're cool on. Start with the quarterback position. How about you kick it off?
Yeah, I got you. I'll be pretty quick with this one. The one that I want to talk about is Matthew Stafford. One of the biggest headlines this year for the Lions is their inability to finish games. The injury to Kenny Golladay has really had a negative effect on this offense, as you can imagine. But Stafford has completed just 2 passes, 20-plus yards downfield, compared to last season through 2 weeks, where he completed 8 passes, 20-plus yards downfield. On paper, I feel like people are going to be penciling Stafford for bounce back if you go on like NFL.com, ESPN. He's going to be the start of the week and stuff like that. But the Cardinals' defense has been something that I've been trying to a defense I've been trying to acquire in waivers. They have allowed the fewest points out of all the NFC West teams. So that's the 49ers and the Seahawks, like teams like that, and the Rams. and they rank 10th in fantasy points, and they're tied for the third most sacks in the league. And their next 3 games are the Lions, Panthers, and Jets. So I feel like this is kind of a reverse. We're cooling down on Matthew Stafford, but we're kind of buying in on the Cardinals defense a little bit for the next upcoming weeks. If you're in a deep league, I would definitely pick up the Cardinals defense and give them a shot.
What are the odds that the Cardinals start 5-0?
Maybe pretty high. I haven't really looked at their schedule of recent, but they're that week 1 win.
You mentioned the next 3.
Oh yeah. They'll definitely start off 5-0.
Oh,
very likely.
Definitely.
I feel like their hardest game was the 49ers game. That was the only game that was really going to test them.
Yeah, and the 49ers were somewhat healthy. No, you're good. Mental lapse.
My notes.
The quarterback that I am cooler on this week, I don't know how many people are even considering starting him, but Daniel Jones. Look, I mean, like, Daniel Jones was a guy who everyone was buying in the offseason as a potential breakout guy. I was buying him, and he has started off with a really brutal schedule. Pittsburgh in week 1. They played Chicago last week, which isn't as bad as Pittsburgh, but now they play San Francisco. And I feel like a lot of people are going to kind of think, like, hey, you know, San Francisco's defense is not the same because of all the injuries and all this. And while that's kind of true, they're still pretty good. They have depth, you know. It's not Nick Bosa coming off the edge and, you know, Solomon Thomas or Richard Sherman at quarterback. But they have enough depth to still be a pretty decent defense. And Daniel Jones just lost Saquon Barkley. Like, I feel like this team is not going to be able to run the ball regardless. And at that point, all you have to stop is Daniel Jones and the passing game. Like, I just don't necessarily like him in this matchup. And I feel like some people are going to try and paint the narrative like, oh, Daniel Jones he's a sneaky play against this beat up San Francisco defense. But I'm really here to squash that. I don't really think that he's a guy that will, you know, I don't mind playing guys like Darius Slayton, maybe Evan Ingram, probably not, but like, the future is brighter for Daniel Jones, but not this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely will agree on that. I knew the Giants' beginning of the season schedule is the reason why I had Daniel Jones in redraft leagues ranked in like the late 20s.
Yeah. Running back, hit him up.
Sorry about this, Rob. I know you're wearing a Falcon shirt, but Todd Gurley, one of the most polarizing players coming in this season. I know it's early on, but you know how I was talking about a little bit. Like, I wasn't against Todd Gurley. I don't end any Todd Gurley, but I'm kind of in on Todd Gurley. But then I was like, fuck that, dude. Officially out on Todd Gurley. The Todd Gurley experience is over. He's been dominating 67% of the rushing share for the Falcons in the red zone, and he's got 10 carries inside the 20, but only has 1 touchdown. Overall, I think it's the receiving woes, and it's just directly going to the trash, making him a more volatile option than he already was before, regardless of the mysterious health concerns with him. He's just not looking good right now. He had like 2 catches for 1 yard through his first 2 games of the season as a Falcon, only averaging 3.3 yards per catch. I wouldn't even want to buy low on Todd Gurley. The Falcons have put up so many points in these first 2 weeks of the season, and Todd Gurley has been absolutely dog shit for them. And he's just been given the opportunity. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's accustomed to the offense, but you said something about it earlier was the offensive line, but the offensive line looks pretty good enough in the passing game. So I don't know what it is about Todd Gurley, but I'm off on Todd Gurley. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I was down on him before the season even started. I believe in my final rankings, I had him ranked at 27. And, people thought, oh, maybe that's a little too low. Well, it was actually too high because he's currently the running back 33. And yes, it's only week 2, but Todd Gurley does not look like Todd Gurley of old, in my opinion. We'll ride him out this year as talking about the Falcons. He'll continue to get the work because he's still the best option available, but he's not going to be, an elite option. For my running back, the person I'm cool on, it's going to be Mark Ingram, running back for the Baltimore Ravens. And this one, I don't know, it was kind of tough. Like, I was just looking at maybe a guy who I thought would underperform a bit, that people might be willing to jump on because of last week. Like, James Conner came to mind, but I actually think James Conner has a pretty good week against the Houston Texans.
Same here.
There were a few guys that came to mind, but Mark Ingram was the one who stood out to me. He looked better last week than week one. He definitely did not look to have it in week one, but people, they want to look at last week and just say, okay, it's Mark Ingram again. Like, this is just not necessarily a backfield to trust. Like, they're going to play based on game plan, in my opinion. And Mark Ingram may be the guy for that this week, but you can't guarantee that heading in. You can't sit here and say, oh, well, I believe this game has a 51. It's either 51 or 55 point over under. Like, it's an insanely high over under. Like, that by Vegas tells you, like, play everyone you possibly can in this game. But I just think that it's either going to be spread up between the running backs for Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, maybe even Gus Edwards getting some work.
Lamar Jackson, who's basically like a third running back, because, like, think about it. Every time they go in the red zone, there's 3 different people that can actually rush in the ball for a touchdown.
Yeah, and last year contained a lot of efficiency from Mark Ingram, and if he, he's good, but he's not as good as he was last year, in my opinion. And
he's just a guy. He's always been just a guy.
No, the resident Mark Ingram hater. I still will not forget the year that you told me it was a terrible time to trade for Mark Ingram when he didn't win me a championship, but he damn near carried me to that spot. So,
that's what he does to you, Rob. He breaks your heart.
Years pass. Wide receiver position. How are you feeling?
You're not going to like this one, but Stephon Diggs, the Josh Allen Diggs connection, like you said, in week one when you called it, has been tremendous this year so far. But the Jets and the Dolphins could be 2 of the worst teams in the league. Allen is leading the league in passing yards with 729. The situation is alarming because I feel like it will even itself out. Ramsey's quote-unquote called Josh Allen trash. So I'm pretty interested to see this game this weekend. I would probably bet on the Bills, but I think the Rams will keep it pretty close. I feel like Diggs, though, in fantasy is a good sell-high candidate because I feel like this is his peak value for redraft leagues. And if he regresses in 1 or 2 games back-to-back, people aren't going to respect Diggs as much as they're respecting him right now. Because if you traded Diggs away right now, you could probably get a pretty often lot full amount for him because the whole entire fantasy community is juicing over Josh Allen after those 2 poorest defenses the first 2 couple weeks of the season.
I was looking before you got these players in. I was looking at potential guys who I would be cool on this week, and I did consider Stephon Diggs for a minute because I looked at that Jalen Ramsey matchup and I was like, if anyone can cool off Stephon Diggs and how hot he is right now, it's going to be Jalen Ramsey. But my point was kind of, I don't think you can bench Stephon Diggs if you've had him right now. Like, he's just playing so well. He's doing so great. He's been like one of the biggest steals from fantasy drafts. So, like, it's hard to justify benching him unless you had another great option, which you might, considering he was a steal. But likely, I'm not benching him regardless. But as you mentioned,
this is more of a sell high candidate than anything, rather than a bench. Because, like you said, Stephon Diggs should be in your starting lineups unless you're playing in a very shallow league.
Yeah, I'm gonna be cool on Jerry Jeudy. Denver.
I was shocked to see this one.
Denver, I mean, this is just more about this week. Tampa Bay is a really pretty good passing, well, not just passing, but defense in general. I mean,
I think they're
obviously,
still volatile in the passing game at least, but their run defense is on lock.
So I mean, you'll be hearing about this for a little while, but Carlton Davis has been a pretty decent cornerback this year. A little less in a sense of like how good he was last week, but I do know that Michael Thomas did not have a great week when he was shadowed by Carlton Davis. And I just feel like, Jerry Jeudy, I
Still a
don't
rookie.
think he's still a rookie, and I don't think he benefits from losing Cortland Sutton personally. Like, Noah Fant's a great tight end, but like,
How doesn't he benefit? I feel like his target
his
share.
market share will
Yeah.
his target share will definitely go up, but his like the target on his back got bigger. If you know what I mean, like
He's getting
like
more number one coverage and stuff like that.
like when Emmanuel Sanders was traded by the Denver Broncos last year, it didn't pay off for Cortland Sutton. Even though Cortland Sutton's a great wide receiver, it just meant that people could hone in on Cortland Sutton in the passing game last year because, there wasn't a ton of other options. Like, yes, you have to account for KJ Hamler, and he's going to be a deep threat and all this, but not only that, you also have I don't even know if it's a downgrade at quarterback right now, but Jeff Driscoll.
Driscoll's not that bad.
He's not that bad. So, but in theory, he's
Definitely
not
a downgrade.
He's not the starter, so it should be a downgrade. So I don't know. And going up against Tampa, who I think is actually a pretty good defense. This is not a long term, sort of don't ever trust Jerry Jeudy, but in this matchup specifically, I don't think he's the sort of guy that you're gonna feel comfortable throwing out there. Despite the recent, injury to Cortland Sutton and the incoming target share increase for Jerry Jeudy.
Definitely can see where your argument's taken at, but I'll go a different direction with that one. So, I'm definitely thinking about playing some Jerry Jeudy in GPPs this week.
Help yourself, man. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily a must bench, but I like not a sell high either, but more so like this week, I think I'd rather wait and see on him personally.
Okay. Like a wait and see approach.
And I think other people should take that route. And if they don't, I mean, he could very well hit. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's finish it off here with the tight ends.
Yeah, the tight end I want to talk about is Philadelphia Zach Ertz. Maybe the days of Zach Ertz being the Eagle is over. I kind of passed over this week one, but there was a heated discussion between our GM and Zach Ertz about contract negotiations, and it's kind of been reflected of it in the first couple of weeks of the season. Dallas Goedert has kind of like low-key outplayed Zach Ertz so far in the season. He has 68 routes run, 20% target market share, 2 red zone targets, and 31.1 PPR points. And Zach Ertz, through the first couple of weeks, has 77 routes run, 16.9% target share, 2 red zone targets, and 20 PPR points. And I feel like both tight ends can obviously be effective in a 2 tight end set, as we saw back in the day, kind of how like the Patriots used to play with Gronk and Aaron Hernandez back in the day. It's kind of like the same setup, but I just feel like Dallas Goedert's Gronk and Zach Ertz is more of Aaron Hernandez, if that makes sense. Like that analogy.
So he's a killer.
Not a killer, but if you remember at that time, Gronk was kind of on like the horizon, and I feel like Dallas Goedert is just a better football player than Zach Ertz, but Zach Ertz has meant more to the community and to the team than Dallas Goedert. And he could block way better than Goedert. Goedert can't really block too well. But I just feel like if you have Zach Ertz, I would be just trying to flit around some trade offers and get rid of him if you're in a dynasty situation.
I don't mind that. But my recommendation would be to wait for a big game because it's going to happen, like Jalen Reagor Another piece of news that we didn't mention: Jalen Reagor placed on IR. He's expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a UCL injury in his thumb. Targets available for Zach Ertz. JJ Arcega-Whiteside has been absolutely garbage to this point. And then I don't know if I actually did, but I was about to drop JJ Arcega-Whiteside in the Dynasty League yesterday, just because they're for all the waiver options. I mean,
nah, man, I don't blame you, dude. I mean, I had remember that one league I told you where you had to start 4 flex.
Mm-hmm.
Before I made that trade for Traquan and Jerick McKinnon, I was starting Greg Ward in the flex.
It's rough. It's a rough time to be a JJ Arcega-Whiteside Dynasty owner, and it's never gonna get better. It's never gonna get better. But no, I would wait for a good performance from Zach Ertz because I feel like it's got to come sometime.
It's got to come, but man, it might be got it. Got it. Triple G's.
Final tight end that I'm gonna bring up here. You mentioned him earlier, but I'm actually cooling on Hayden Hurst a little bit this week.
Okay,
I think he's gonna be involved in the sense he's gonna run a ton of routes. He's gonna be targeted a little, but I mean he's still. I mean, this changes if Julio is not playing because I think he'll be needed if Julio is not playing. But Chicago is just kind of. It's not the same sort of Atlanta in the first 2 weeks against Seattle and Dallas. Two defenses who have not been very good to this point. Chicago is not an elite defense, elite, but they're definitely top 10. So it's kind of just a big difference in the opposition. And while I think you can definitely start Matt Ryan and the wide receivers, Julio through Gage and love my Calvin Ridley shares. But as far as Hayden Hurst, I'm not willing to buy in completely on everyone in this offense. As you mentioned, Todd Gurley is someone that you're cooling on this week. And I'm cooling on Hayden Hurst just because I think in an actual matchup where the defense is tougher, I don't think everyone's going to succeed. I don't think Gage is going to necessarily disappoint because you don't have high expectations for him, but he's not going to hit that sort of ceiling. And then Julio and Ridley are must starts, but in my opinion, outside of those 3 wide receivers, I'm not really interested in playing anyone else in this matchup.
Yeah, I can definitely see what you're talking about. For one of my Dynasty leagues this upcoming week, would you start Mike Gesicki or Hayden Hurst? That's the situation I'm put in right now. I'm thinking about saying fuck it and start both.
One of them will pop, hopefully.
I really do have both of my starting lineup right now.
I'd probably go Gesicki. I mean, Jacksonville is not that bad on defense as we kind of projected, which is surprising because they have no one. But Gesicki, like I said, I'm not completely buying into the breakout this soon, but he did show enough last week that he should be a big part of this offense. And it's tough between him and Hayden Hurst, but I think the matchup is where I'd lean the little difference, and I think the matchup's a little better there for Gesicki. All right, let's finish this out with our survivor pool for the year. To this point, Billy, you are currently 2-0. Congratulations, because you're losing this week. No, I'm kidding. I don't know that you are, but 2-0 to my 1-1. Screw the Colts for losing week 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm actually picking the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. They're home against the Miami Dolphins. Billy and I are going to have to pick bad teams at some point, and I mean, this is my kind of like the Jacksonville Jaguars have been surprisingly competitive this season. They almost snuck a win away from the Tennessee Titans last week. They did beat the Indianapolis Colts in week 1. And the Miami Dolphins are kind of in that sense too of surprisingly competitive, but I think the Jaguars being at home and having a better quarterback, in my opinion, I think they'll be able to sneak this one out, and hope I will be able to move on 2-1.
Minshew mania.
That exactly, and shout out at ClapGod253 Shane.
And you better shout me out too, man. I saw that.
Did you go to Washington State?
No, I did not go to Washington State, but me and Shane were both on the same bandwagon when we met each other. When Shane said Gardner Minshew, I said, wow, dude, I fuck with Gardner Minshew too, dude. I have him pretty ranked high, and that's how me and Shane became friends. Because in every league that I'm in that isn't with Shane, I have Gardner Minshew.
The love of Gardner. He's a good quarterback, though. He is a really good quarterback, and
he's that bull, man.
He's the reason that the Jaguars will not have the number 1 pick.
What did I tell you about that stat about him and Mahomes?
How are you feeling? You have the Arizona Cardinals here on the screen.
I think the Cardinals are just like a different type of tier of a team. I feel like we're kind of underestimating the Arizona Cardinals and how good they have looked and how like one of the only teams that hasn't dealt with a shitload of injuries on offense and defense. Like they're relatively healthy. Kenyon Drake is looking to bounce back this week. I don't see anybody on this team being able to stop him on the ground. And they have the 1-2 combo with him and Chase Edmonds. And I feel like DeAndre Hopkins, who's stopping him this week? I feel
no
like
one's ever stopping him
off, man. And they're home against Detroit. We kind of saw this game play out in Kyler Murray's rookie year last year, his first game of the season. And the game played out way closer than everybody else expected. And I feel like that was his first game of the season. And I feel like with him, the way that he's been playing right now and the development of him, he's just making guys look stupid out there.
Yeah, he is. Those touchdown runs are just like they're just something that you want to watch on repeat. And like if you can make a video your wallpaper, like that would be perfect. That would be a perfect one to just like constantly look at. It's just so beautiful. So you have the Arizona Cardinals. You're 2-0, having picked the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to this point. I'm picking the Jacksonville Jaguars. 1-1. I have picked the Indianapolis Colts and the San Francisco 49ers. And yeah, good luck, buddy. Not much else to really hit on in this podcast. You want to give one last shout out to yourself, to Pub Sports Radio, to whoever you got to shout out.
Yeah, make sure you come hang out with us. UFC 253, Izzy versus Costa. I know you're not a big UFC fan, but Rob, dog, this shit is like an anime, real-life TV show of big, long black dude versus Jax. So it's a crazy one. Make sure you check out Pub Sports Radio and you follow me on Twitter over at Getting Bills because I got a lot of things coming out at all hours of the night. People think I'm lying to you. If you're up at 4 o'clock in the morning on a random night, you might see a tennis play from me. You'll always see the UFC plays from me on Saturday. The NFL plays come out a little bit later on Sundays. But I'm thinking about starting a little something with either me and you on our YouTube to get our YouTube stuff up, like a quick little player prop show. So maybe we can get into that one.
Look, I will pay attention to your Twitter to know how to make some money without learning how to play UFC. That's the process that I follow. Follow me on Twitter at Dynasty Force FB. Follow the show at Dynasty Force Pod. Follow us on Twitter, or well, that is Twitter. Follow us on YouTube, Dynasty Force Podcast. All the episodes are there if you want to see us. You want to see Billy's beautiful mansion background. You can see the little fuzzy at the bottom right of Billy's screen so that you know it's not real. It's not real. He's just faking. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Caitlin Marie, nice house, Billiam. I wonder who that is.
Shout out to Kate, the girlfriend, always showing love.
I was talking. Oh, YouTube, Dynasty Force Podcast. Comment your start-sit questions. We will answer at any point in time. We will be able to go in and say and respond to you. We can post it on Twitter. We can do whatever you want. Hit us up. We got you. Or if you want to be very formal, you can email us, dynastyforcepod@gmail.com. Yeah, feel free. Hit us up. Voicemail. Do whatever you got to do because we can make it happen. Bill, say goodnight to the people. It's going to be a fun week of football. What are you looking forward to most this week?
I'm looking forward to most. I don't really talk about my hometown team, but man, if we lose to the motherfucking Bengals this week against Joe Burrow, I'm losing it. The same exact way Allison just threw that pillow at you. TV remote through the television.
For those of you listening and not watching, very randomly you just saw a pillow come flying at me. So, yes. Meanwhile, you missed it because you were not here. I'm going to reiterate this, but Billy's girlfriend, Caitlin, actually commented and said that he's in a very nice house right now, very nice location. So you see the difference in our relationships here. So just a nice little visual for you all.
Oh, you got the grand piano and everything.
Yeah, he's got the setup.
Doing big things over here. Shout out to my family for kicking me out for that.
What I'm most excited for this week. It's not the Atlanta Falcons. I don't want to ever see them play again.
Why are you wearing the shirt?
It's the only shirt I have.
I'm with Allison on that. You guys need to come up with your own podcast, man.
Too much to talk about. Anywho, I think honestly, I'm buying into it a bit. I'm buying hype on Gardner Minshew, and I'm really excited to see the game tomorrow night. I think he's legit. I think he's a real quarterback, a real franchise quarterback. I don't want to say the next Tom Brady, but both 6th-round picks, so they got that going for him. So stay tuned on the Gardner Minshew love. Again, at Dynasty Force Pod on Twitter. Follow us personally. Billy at Getting Bills, me at Fantasy Force FB. Hope you all enjoy this beautiful weekend. Hopefully you've got some nice fall weather going for you. It's not humid out. It's nice and you can go around outside, throw the pigskin around yourself, enjoy some time with the family, enjoy some nice football. And I hope that this weekend we don't have nearly the amount of injuries that we had last weekend, because that would just be painful to watch. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy your night.